Hey, well, good afternoon, Catalina Foothills Church. Pastor John Stone. Hope you had a great 4th of July. It was very enjoyable last night to sit on my roof and watch the fireworks all over town as we celebrated our country's birthday. And we've come to the last text in the Sermon on the Mount. Have no idea what next week's devotion will be, but when we get there, we'll figure it out. How about that? But let's end this way. What an ending. What a great series. Every Christian probably should read the book of John, the Sermon on the Mount, and the book of Romans every year. Now that's too simple, but hey, this sermon by Jesus is amazing. Obviously, he's perfect, Son of God, God himself, but it starts this way. Matthew 7:24. Therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house. Yet it did not fall because it had its foundation on the rock. But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on the sand. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against the house, and it fell with a great crash. So fundamentally, Jesus has preached this sermon, which has gone for basically 3 chapters, chapters 5, 6, and 7 in Matthew. And throughout 5, 6, and 7, he's really put an emphasis on our obeying him and obeying what he really meant in the Old Testament. And the reason I might say what he really meant is because those who he was preaching to, the Jewish nation, those who were the teachers, had misrepresented the Old Testament, had turned what should have been a nation full of love and kindness and grace and invitation and light and healing into a very harsh, judgmental, rejecting place. And Jesus has called us to things like poverty of spirit and mourning and meekness and hungering and thirsting for righteousness and mercy and turning away from anger and being salt and light and turning away from lust and giving to the needy and praying and keeping our word, giving a cloak to someone who takes our shirt, right? He's laid out this tremendous vision for a life of love. And we know that even the Apostle Paul says these 3 remain: faith, hope, and love, and the grace of these is love. And Jesus has laid out what it looks like to love. And so when he comes there and says, a wise man built his house on a rock, it's easy to turn that simply into theological belief. I believe the right things, and Jesus has put great emphasis certainly on what we believe, but on what we do. Over and over he has said, the one who obeys me, the one who keeps my commands, the one who is doing what I want is the one who has built his house on a rock. And so it's your character that is actually the foundation that lays upon this rock, the rock being Christ, but also the rock being the Sermon on the Mount in this case. And he's asking us some simple questions. Do we mourn? Do we mourn for lost people? Not for our country, not for China. Those would be legitimate things to mourn for, but that's not what he's getting here. He never mentions mourning for Israel or Persia or Mesopotamia. He says, do you mourn for the condition and the people around you that they're lost? Are you a peacemaker? Are you merciful? Do you give to the needy? Do you love your neighbor as yourself? Do you store up treasures on heaven and not on earth by giving your stuff away? See, he's saying that we will know what your house is built on when we see what you've done. When we see the actions in your life, the actions of giving and of mercy and of grace and of patience and of love and of kindness. We often cultivate, if we're honest, the opposite of that in our hearts. Judgment and anger, frustration and impatience. And we justify that in our minds as righteousness. But righteousness looks like Christ, who had every reason to be angry and every reason to be frustrated and every reason to bring judgment and every reason, as it were, to lash out, and yet he never did. Jesus is demonstrating what it looks like to have your house built on a rock, and it looks like us submitting our hearts and our minds and our lives to the Sermon on the Mount. Hope you're having a great week. Hope you had a great Fourth. Good to be with you this afternoon. Look forward to seeing you in the coming weeks. You have a great day.